Well, it's Gator glory. Houston, we do have a problem, and they did have a problem. And man, oh man, did Duke choke in the Final Four. All that and more on the Prize Podcast. Thank you for joining in on the Prize Podcast, where we talk about how sports and the Christian worldview intersect one another. I am Kyle Huntsinger. It's good to be back on the show. If you would like to know more information about me, you can email me, pursuetheprize@gmail.com. You can also email me, khunsinger50@gmail or kyle@chapinbaptist.com. Well, it's a pleasure to be here this morning as I'm recording. I'm recording this in the morning. Just want to go ahead and give you a heads up. I am going to pre-record a message for the following week because I'm going to be out of town. And so I want to go ahead and get that out to you guys. But of course, if anything happens that's pertinent to sports news that needs to be up and current, I can always provide a extended podcast. I'm probably also looking forward to doing some little small snippets of things throughout the week, but still my main podcast will be on Thursdays and Fridays, depending on when I record for those 2 days. So just giving you an update on that. Well, today we're going to talk about a couple different things with the Final Four. I do want to go ahead and, for some of my Gamecock listeners, I'm so sorry that y'all lost the national championship. Man, what a great season South Carolina had. But, man, UConn they just came ready to play. And, with UConn's front court, I think that's what really, really propelled them over that game and gave them a little bit of some of the more talent there, power, and it just was evident there that they had good inside post play, but then they could shoot. Paige Beckers had a great game. Of course, she did really, really well. Ultimately, UConn wins the national championship. They won, and it's their first one since 2016. It's been a hot minute since they last won, considering that they're a big-time women's college basketball program. I mean, college basketball in general, they're a big time, especially also in men's basketball. An interesting statistic that I found out and was on social media this past week, only 4 teams in men's basketball, check this out, have won the national championship more than 3 times. Florida, UConn, Duke, and North Carolina. Those are your 4. So I thought that was pretty interesting in connection. I thought about that when I was thinking about teams that have multiple national championships. You go to UConn, man, you can go through all their stuff. But it's been almost 10 years since they've won. So congratulations to the UConn Huskies. But obviously, I know our South Carolina fans, they want to get back at it for next year, and I don't doubt they will. They will be a top 5 team, and they will continue to do well under Dawn Staley. Now, getting to one of those programs that won their first national championship since 2007, you got the Florida Gators that won the national championship. Now, how did we get there? How did we get to the Florida Gators? Well, everyone thought that Florida was going to play Duke, and including me. I thought Duke was going to be that good matchup that they needed in order for there to be kind of like the heavyweight battle that was going to occur between the 2 programs. We'll come to find out that's not how it turned out to be. Auburn and Florida played each other, and Auburn, very tough battle, but Florida just was a better overall team. They played very, very well. So the Gators, they win the national championship under Walter Clayton Jr., their leading point guard, and Todd Golden. He is one of the guys, and I think I just mispronounced his name. I want to make sure I get his name right again. I think I said Todd Golden. I'm hoping that that's the right one. This is called live Todd Golden. Yeah. For some reason I thought Todd Bolden, and I don't know why. But anyway, Todd Golden wins his first national championship as a Florida coach. And beats his predecessor, or not his predecessor, but one of his mentors, Bruce Pearl. Todd Golden was at Auburn. So pretty interesting that he gets it. Young dude. I think he's 39 years old. Congrats to them. Now, one of the biggest stories, going back to the Duke one, is Duke supposed to win. They were supposed to win the national champion, or supposed to win the Final Four and go to the national championship. They had arguably the best player in college basketball in Cooper Flagg. He ended up being the Naismith Player of the Year for 2025. That's not how it ended up. This gives you a little statistical, just kind of how things went in that game. 59-45 with 8 minutes and 17 seconds left. Duke was up 59-45. In a typical game, that would have given them the overall superiority of winning this battle, but they didn't. Then it gets closer, 64-55. I watched this whole entire game, and I just thought, man, Duke's going to win this. I just felt like they were going to pull it out. But 3 minutes and 3 seconds left, 64-55. Then it becomes really interesting. Then you get to 67-61 with less than a minute left, and you're thinking, okay, Duke cannot allow any more shots. They're gonna take this 67-61. But Houston fights back, and they hit a three. They get the 2 free throws from the Cooper Flagg foul. Now, you can argue if it was a bad foul or not. I think that's pointless to argue regardless of the results, because when you don't score a field goal in less than 10 minutes in the game, you've got a problem. And that was Duke's problem. Probably and I hate to say this, well, I don't hate to say this because I'm a Tar Heel fan, but Duke's choke might have been the worst one in NCAA history. It's arguably maybe one of Duke's worst losses. Jay Williams recently on ESPN said that it's up there with them getting beat by North Carolina in the Final Four, which was their most recent Final Four loss. But that's kind of what happened. They had a great season, but Houston was the tougher team. They were the better rebounding team at the end. They were the better team when they were clutch. Here was the difference. They had an endurance and a fight from a veteran group of players. So the question is, were we as people delusional to believe Duke was going to win the national championship? Considering that they were mostly freshman players? Because that was the one thing that we were left with at the end of the game, is like Duke was talented in every single way and did everything probably right in most games. They would probably win this game 9 times out of 10. But yet, when the moment mattered the most, the youth showed in this game. And folks, that's the reason why seniors and juniors and people that last longer and go through the transfer portal, that's the reason why it matters. It matters because when you have the endurance from a veteran players, it matters. Florida did the same thing. Florida had veteran players. Now, the odd thing is Houston had a veteran coach, been in 50 NCAA tournament games. But it came down to one play, and a mistake was made. Not getting a shot off in the national championship. What I love about Kelvin Sampson, by the way, North Carolina guy, not Tar Heel guy, but he's from the state of North Carolina. I love this. There was a quote that Kelvin Sampson from the yahoosports.com said, "Encouragement on the heels of a devastating loss." Don't we need that as believers? Don't we need encouragement when it comes to devastating loss, anxiety, worry? You know, when I was studying for my message this coming week and looking through things, I was brought to 2 Thessalonians 2, 1 through 12. And this is the infamous passage, or the famous passage of the man of lawlessness, the Antichrist. And he's being restrained. And, the people during this time in the church of Thessalonica believed they were living out the day of the Lord. They believed a lie from false teachers that they were in the day of the Lord. And Paul says, no, I've already taught you some of these things you need to know. And you need to realize you're not in the day of the Lord. In fact, he gives the argument later on that you're going to be protected from that. You're going to be delivered, strengthened, and given hope. But it's all by God's grace and his work. But those who follow the other direction, they're going to be delusional. In fact, they're going to be so delusional that they're going to reject God, and they're going to follow the ways of this antichrist figure to come. Now, there's debate on, is this referring to a man of lawlessness, an actual man to come into the future? Is this talking about the man of lawlessness that's already been fulfilled when Antigonus Epiphanes the fourth came in 167 BC? He took the throne of Jerusalem in their temple and erected a statue of Zeus, and then he sacrificed a pig on the altar. He desecrated, kind of like the abomination of desolation type view you got there in connection with that. And so there's a lot of debate on that. I think what we can get clearly from all of this is that Paul knew what he was preaching on. The people of Thessalonica knew that. The church knew that. And it was a thing of saying, just don't be deceived by the lies of the evil one. I think you can take all of these in a already not yet fulfillment that there is a spirit of the Antichrist working, as the book of John says in First John. But then also you can say this coming of the lawless one is based on Satan's working and has miraculous signs and wonders. But those who are perishing will fall after this delusion, so much so that God gives them over to it. It says in verse 11 that for this reason God sends them a strong delusion. Doesn't mean God's acting in sin, but God is sovereign over the good and the bad. Even when Satan tries to do what he tries to do, God is using it ultimately to fulfill his good plans. So what better thing to encourage us as Christians in devastating loss than to hear about the good news that coming up in a couple of weeks, we get to celebrate the precipice of encouragement on the heels of a devastating loss. The serpent tried to strike the heel of man, and he did. He did it to the God-man. But yet the God-man would stick his foot right back on his head and pound it, crush the serpent's head. So we take encouragement with today's sports news, knowing that we have encouragement in devastating loss because we as Christians know what it means to suffer. Maybe not for you in your American context, but you know what it means to struggle. You know what it means to have difficulty, anxiety, depression, worries, to be an emotional hot mess because of the circumstances we're in. And we're reminded we have a God that is faithful. We have a God that surpasses seniority. We have a God that surpasses being a veteran. He's more than a veteran. He's eternal. Who's the one that's faithful to come in the clutch for us? It's God himself. And Jesus did that by going to the cross, and he came through by actually rising from the grave. That's the reason why we can say he is risen as we await for Easter Sunday to come. But then we get to celebrate that consistently. So then now as the college basketball season's over with, we're going to end up talking about other stuff outside of college basketball. But to kind of put a wrap on the show, the good news is there's a transfer portal. There's high school recruiting. There's all kind of things coming to play. And there's always a fresh start in 2025, 2026 year. Players are looking for a fresh start. Coaches are looking for a fresh start. Programs are looking for fresh starts. The university. But man, oh man, isn't something good? The fresh start's great, but then there's also this other aspect of you got the 3 or 4 year guy, and the guy's been there for 3 years at the same program, and then he comes back for his fourth year. And it's like, man, look at the growth that young man is going through, or the young woman in NCAA women's basketball. I mean, you got to think about that. That is such a cool thing to think through. I was excited to hear that Seth Trimble was coming back to North Carolina, 4-year veteran. Guy bleeds Carolina blue. We have a God who's way different from man and anything else. We have a God who delivers us encouragement. He gives us a brand new start by saving us because he chose us. He gave us belief in the truth. He guarded us from the evil one, and he's still doing that. But then he's like that. He's more than a 4-year senior. He's the one that keeps coming back, and he's faithful. He's just faithful. So remember that even in the devastating loss, we can find encouragement in a God that is faithful. And I hope that encourages you today. Thank you for joining in on the Prize Podcast, where we talk about how sports in the Christian worldview. If you would like to know more information about me, again, pursuetheprize@gmail.com. It's been a pleasure to have you on the Prize Podcast. I look forward to having another episode for you next week on the Prize Podcast. Take care.